Hello guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. I hope everyone's doing okay. Thank you very much for tuning in. As always, I really appreciate it. Shout out to all the subscribers. Gratitude to anybody new. Welcome along. Let's talk about this fight, man. Do you know what I mean? So much controversy from last night. Happy they both came out the ring healthy. You know, it was going to be a brutal fight. It looked pretty brutal in there between Alberto Puello and Subriel Matias, the new champion. Congratulations to him. We're going to chop up all the details. I'm going to give you my thoughts. We're going to talk about the scorecards, the actual fight. But before we do that, I just want to say this. In boxing, excessive holding, also known as clinching, is considered a foul and is not allowed. While some clinching is permitted for defensive purposes, such as to prevent punches or buy time when hurt, excessive holding, especially with the intent to stall the fight, can lead to warnings, point deductions, or even disqualifications. Now, those are the rules, right? Sometimes a lot of people just bypass the rules and forget about them, but that is right there, obviously, the excessive holding, like initiating clinches. Initiating clinches isn't actually illegal, and it's, you know, it's part of the game, especially if a fighter's hurt and they're trying to buy time. I think most boxing fans accept the fact that that is part of the game, and that's fine. It's a skill. It really is. But excessive holding, it was absurd last night from Alberto Puello. Now, at no point did, at least not from my side, I watched the fight a couple of times, one with the sound on, one with the sound off, and I was actually watching it at work last night, which is just not a good template, but I did get enough of the fight to understand what I thought would happen. Now, let's talk about the rules quickly as well, because this is important to know, because I feel like still, since the HBO days, they don't really broadcast the rules. And that was quite a complex fight in some of the rounds, I thought, you know, especially the swing rounds, where when you're scoring a fight, you have to consider clean, effective punches, which is probably the most important criteria. Then you have effective aggression, which was coming into play, and ineffective aggression, effective aggression is the rule, but there was some ineffective aggression going on from Matias. And then you have defense, which is a part of it. Then you have ring generalship, which was ebbing and flowing. This is just my opinion as well, because each element of those, especially the ring generalship and, you know, effective aggression, can be a little subjective, even defense. But so those, if you don't understand those rules, that's okay, but those have to be applied, right? And then you have the old HBO days where they said, you know, who's doing more damage? Or Max Kellerman used to say, who would you rather be? Now, that's not the official way of scoring it, but I understand what they're saying. So it can get complicated in there. As I said, I'll get onto the actual my scorecard later. But look, Alberto Puello came out quite nicely in the first couple of rounds, you know, boxing and moving, using a lot of energy. Matias was putting a lot of pressure on early as well, which is what I was like, he's got to come out the gate, and especially in that second round. I mean, he was really applying a lot of pressure. And, you know, in the first round, this is a good example of Alberto Puello using the ring generalship, right? Boxing, moving, using the ring to his advantage, fighting the fight that he wants to fight, keeping it long, and landing cleaner shots, you know. In the first couple of rounds, I think I had, let me check for sure, because I think I had the second round. For me, it was a little bit of a swing round, you know, because Matias was applying a lot of pressure, and he was, you know, being effective with it a little bit at times. You know, later on, towards the back end of the fight, it was more ineffective pressure, right? You can be aggressive, but if you're not doing anything with the aggression, then it becomes ineffective, and it doesn't really, it's not a factor in the fight, but it was a factor earlier for Matias. And in terms of defense, there was a lot of shots getting like rid or road, you know, blocking and stuff like that. But Puello was definitely doing the cleaner work, from my opinion. Round 3, I had that as a swing. I think that was the first round I gave to Matias, but 2 and 3 for me were swing rounds. And but this is the kind of fight that you could watch again, like the BE.YOUR.BEST to a degree, minus the holding, where I watched that a couple of times back, and I just started to change the cards because I was like, maybe 3 minutes is a long time when there's like a lot going on. We're not there. We can't tell what damage these punches are doing. It's hard, man. Do you know what I mean? To score these fights, especially the close swing rounds where what are you favoring as well? That's, you know, already going to favor a certain fighter if there's two judges that prefer the pressure, right, as opposed to a back foot fighter with the cleaner work, the counter punching like Puello. So that's always a subjective thing that gets thrown out there. But after 3, I had it 2-1 to Puello, and then after that, Matias started to smoke.
And Matias has gone downstairs as well. Some big body shots that could pay dividends later. What a grueling fight this is.
Right, he's coming on, putting a lot of pressure on, effective aggression. I didn't think he was getting landed on anywhere near as much as he was earlier on and later on by Puello. And I thought Matias was winning those rounds. I thought he was fighting his fight. I thought he was doing a lot of damage, like not a lot of damage, but like, you know, that slow systematic pressure and body shots, uppercuts on the inside, you know, and I thought he was doing the better work, and I thought he was winning those mid rounds up until round, I think 7. I think I gave it to 7 to Matias, but that was for me a swing round again. So, but after the 7th, and I'm probably going to be, you know, yelled at for this because I've made a lot of Matias videos, but I couldn't find a round for him. So if you were to, I only gave Matias 5 rounds, to be honest with you. Now I'm going to hold on a second though, because I'm going to talk about this holding. And that was a massive part of the fight. In fact, that was the main reason why I think probably he didn't have as much success as he could have, because I think, well, I pretty much know if that holding, what if Puello wasn't able to hold, he'd have probably got stopped. He didn't get points taken away from him. Now, I could sway with you if you wanted to call that fight a draw. I've got no issues with that. Really, I don't. And if I watch it again, maybe I could come to that conclusion. But in my heart, I couldn't find 7 rounds for Matias, to be honest with you. I'd love to hear from you guys. Keep it respectful. Do you know what I mean? This is just an opinion at the end of the day. But you know, at the end of the day, after round 8, Puello was definitely doing the cleaner work. He was being the ring general. You know, he was you know, using his defense, and again, his defense was fouls. So I don't say this like without a caveat of the fact that without those fouls and the clinching, he'd have had points deducted or disqualification. I don't think he should have been disqualified. I'm just saying there's a reason why he was being successful with what he was doing. And I spoke about this pre-fight. I was like, Matias has got to find a way, because Puello's going to come in and he's going to duck underneath and he's going to start holding or smothering you and pushing you back to break your base, which is what he was doing so much. One other thing, actually 2 other things, and this is like, you know, why I guess when you score it like that, like these things, I'm just putting them into play, but the ref didn't call these out, and someone spoke about the ref pre-fight. They're like, the ref's going to be really important. Pushing your opponent like that, and I'll show you, right? I'm actually going to bring you up some clips from one round, round 6, right, where Puello was just holding him. I even, you know, at one point I started to count the amount of holds. It was above 40, which is ridiculous. I stopped counting because it was just, you know, I was like, what's the point? It's just a number. But it was, we all know, it was way too much. But the pushing, right? You can't do that either. That's a foul. Right, so pushing, holding excessively, clinching, and then a couple of other things too, and maybe someone could clear this up with me. As far as I know, hitting your opponent with the open palm like that is not a scoring shot. And Puello definitely landed a few shots like that, and I'll pull up some clips. So those, as far as I know, and I looked it up as well, but I don't think those score. That being said, I still think Puello, well, did win 7 rounds, but he's a champion. Do you know what I mean? You shouldn't be fighting like that as a champion. You shouldn't be clinching and holding so excessively like initiating clinches. Like so in that round 6, he must have done it like at least 6 or 7 times on top of the pushing, you know. So it's like I have an issue with that, and you know, I think, as I said, without that, I'm pretty sure he would have been stopped, because you can't stop the flow, and that Matias flow, and he fought his heart out, man. Do you know what I mean? Matias fought his heart out. I'd love to say Puello fought bravely, because in spots he did, but it wasn't without cheating. You know what I mean? That's fouling. So, you know, it's at the end of the day, it's one of those fights that you know, it's going to sound a bit savage, but it's one of those fights you just got to let them fight until see who wins by knockout. But they got to run it back. Maybe they gave Matias a little bit of a nod because of the Tom and Jerry stuff. Do you know what I mean? Again, look, if you generally scored it 7-5 for Matias, I probably don't have an issue with that. I really don't. You know, I think maybe that, you know, if you gave it all the swing rounds to Matias, I got no issues with that. It's not what I scored it though. You know, I had it for Puello, but there were reasons for that, and the reasons were foul play. Really, if you're just going to be honest about it, I know honesty and facts are kind of a dissipating factor in society these days. So I deal with facts. I'm a very objective guy. I know people are probably expecting me to say Matias won and stuff like that. I made a lot of videos about him. I get a lot of support from his fan base, and I appreciate it. You know what I mean? But I'm not going to go against my heart. And to be honest with you, if I'm being really honest, again, I think Matias, if you looked at his face after, and you can't really tell, right? But it didn't look like he really believed he won. Maybe he did. I'm just thinking out loud. I'm looking at him thinking, I don't know if he really believed he won that fight. Maybe he was frustrated with all the clinching and holding and stuff like that. I don't know. Maybe he was just tired. Again, I'm just hypothetically speaking. I was trying to think of a word that would pluralize that, but yeah, anyway, I'm sure there's a lot more in here too that I'm missing too, because like I said, it was a complex fight. The later rounds, obviously Puello had that success in the 11th. I mean, his rounds really were a bit clearer towards the end. I mean, Matias had those clear rounds in the middle for sure, but you know, he rocked him with that 11th round uppercut.
Puello has never lost, while Matias has never won a decision.
Matias is hurt. It was an uppercut, landed a clean left uppercut, his favorite punch. Matias ate that up, but his legs betrayed him.
And I think he caught him in the 2nd or 3rd with a shot, which sometimes the commentators say that, you know, Matias is hurt. He shrugs it off so well that, you know, he might just do a little move like that, but that wasn't enough for me in the 3rd to really steal it, given all the pressure that Puello was under and all the inside work Matias was doing as well, you know. And you know, psychological pressure. He was cutting the ring off not as well as he should have, you know. There was some stuff he wasn't getting as creative as I mentioned in the keys to victory. Creativity. You can't just walk in on Puello all the time, especially when he get a little bit later when he got tired. He was very predictable, and that made it a lot easier. And Puello got a second wind, and he was, you know, able to use the ring generalship. And while Matias was walking in aggressively, it was ineffective, you know, later on. And as I said, Puello landed that demon uppercut. Well, it was a good shot in the 11th, and then I thought he won the 12th as well. But at the end of the day, this is the kind of fight where it could have gone either way, and Puello's been on the right end of decisions. And you know, every fighter probably gets these. So I'm generally happy for Matias, to be honest with you. Just because my scorecard doesn't reflect what people want to hear or what they think, doesn't take away from the fact that he's got the belt now. So he's got the belt, he's a champion. And you know, on to the next, which is my countryman Dalton Smith. Big up Dalton Smith. Now look, that's actually a really good fight, and it's a very tough fight for Dalton Smith, because if you can't fight like Puello, like actually stick a move slickly, right? Because Dalton Smith is the counter puncher. He's a very crisp, sharp, conservative fighter. I haven't seen enough of him to know how he deals with the inside stuff, because if that Matias comes out, I think he probably stops Dalton Smith, to be honest, right now. And I'm not, again, I'm objective. Just because he's from England, I'm not going to pick him. But I have watched him. I do like him. He's a respectful guy. They were facing off at the end. It's all love at the end of the day. You know, we're in the sport to cover these guys. My channel is to be objective, to cover these guys with passion, heart, honesty, and, you know, just a love for the sport and a love for the sweet science. When I talk about science, I talk about art. And in fact, I'll tell you this. And I spoke about this in a video I made yesterday. Yeah, Possessed. I was gonna make this intro, right? If Matias won, which he did win, but because in my heart I felt like it wasn't like the win I was kind of hoping for, really, because I was gonna put this "The Champ Is Here" piece of music. I was gonna spend all day doing it.
Ladies and gentlemen, the heavyweight champion of the world has arrived. The champ is here. The champ is here.
Right, I wasn't even sure I was going to add some conga drums and have a whole full intro, like "The champ is here," using like the DJ background that I have. It's giving me goosebumps now, to be honest, because I thought about it for so long. And I was like, man, that'd be amazing, because I'm really trying to bring more music into the channel. And I just didn't have it in my heart to do that, because I was like, it didn't feel right to do such an elaborate win. If you felt that way, that's up to you. That's your feelings, and that I got, you know, no gripes with that. Like I said, if you thought he won 7-5, I don't really have an issue. I couldn't give personally 7 rounds to him. 6, sure, I could have squeezed the draw, but I ended up giving it 7-5 to Puello. But obviously, as I said, massive reasons why. The holding played a huge part and saved Puello, you know what I mean? So yeah, anyway, like I said, I'm not on this channel to not speak my mind and be honest about things, regardless of the fighter or the situation. I'm just here to tell you how I feel and what I thought. And, you know, it was an interesting fight. It was a bit sloppy at times, a bit messy in there. You know, their limbs were kind of up close and long and kind of awkward. But, you know, at the end of the day, they got to run it back. That's all I'll say. So, let me know your thoughts. I hope you guys enjoyed the fight. Maybe I'll do a separate video on Belenga. Man, he got KO'd badly. Well, it was bad enough. I only saw the highlights, to be honest with you. I still got to watch back the Zepeda fight as well, Shakur fight. But anyway, I have got another video coming up. I spoke about this yesterday, called I've been thinking about it for a while now. It's called the Passion of an Island, where I'm talking about Puerto Rico, I'm talking about England, I'm actually talking about Jamaica as well. And these are islands that have influenced me musically and from a boxing standpoint as well. But I'm really going to talk about the passion that these fighters fight with. Jamaica, more music, obviously. England, music. Puerto Rico, music. But tie it in and just to, give you a piece of me at the end of the day. Because this channel is a boxing channel, but it's really a music and science channel. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. Yeah, keep it respectful. Peace, love, I'm out.
Ladies and gentlemen, the champion of the world has arrived. The champ is here.
They give it to Matias. Super lightweight champion of the world. Subriel Matias.
Boxing.
Knowledge.